for today's cup of coffee. Take two.
She's giving me attitude.
It wasn't that. I just totally, completely lost my place.
And she give me attitude with the thing. Damn.
No, Kid has, in this area, we have some of the local churches that do homemade candies. And this time of year, as far as the Easter eggs, and they are phenomenal.
It's the only time I will eat chocolate and peanut butter together. They are that good.
Oh, they have just, yeah. And so these ladies, I may disagree with them about some of their doctrine, but I do never disagree with their cooking skills. Because these little ladies, they can cook.
When it comes to food, oh, fuck them. I'll eat the food. Give me the food. I don't care if I have beef with you. You got for good food.
Oh, anyhow, it's never fun to sit in court behind somebody that's got their hair piled up so high that you have to peep around them to see the judge. Anyhow.
Like, hello? I'm having to look behind the gnome.
And I'm not trying to diss anybody.
The lawn gnome. I'm having to look behind the lawn gnome hat of hair.
Right. But we have had some really bad experiences with some of the people that are Pentecostal / holiness in this area. But it's not all of them.
No.
I think it's just the ones that we happen to encounter. But anyhow, the eggs, they are top notch. There's nothing that you'll ever get in any store will come close to what these are like.
Nope.
So, anyhow, Livescience. I am enjoying that website greatly. They have got some really cool stuff on there.
I still have not, got the chance to go on that website.
No, there's all kinds of stuff. And so the link will be in the description box. And the author of this is Stephanie Pappas, and it was originally published October the 24th, 2016. Did I tell him this time it's going to be a two-part thing?
No.
That was probably in the... As he's wanting to keep a blooper reel, and I'm like, oh, hell no. That goes down the memory hole. It really does.
And that is why I am going to start editing her videos from now on.
No.
Because I will post those. I will make sure they are posted.
No. It's usually me going, what the hell am I doing? Did I just read that? I do have an excuse.
Orlando saying, what the hell, for 3 minutes straight.
I do have an excuse, which is they put me on a new type of insulin, which I'm struggling. And I also have some kind of dental abscess, which that'll be a next week thing. So I'm a little bit struggling.
So needless to say, she's fucked up right now.
No, I'm just struggling. Anyhow, this is 25 grisly archaeological discoveries. And I do like the word grisly. That works well with...
Grizzly bear.
That's a different type of... It's like gristle. I like the word grisly, but I don't like the word gristle. That's a repugnant word. I don't know.
Gristle is just...
It's just nasty.
It's just grisly? It's the same thing.
I like it.
It's the same thing. It's just like... I'm eating Santa.
Yeah, these are things you don't talk about when somebody is eating, or certain terms you don't use when somebody is eating. All right, first on the list, decapitated gladiators. And a set of skeletons...
That happened a lot.
Yeah, discovered in York, England, belonged to tall men who died before the age of 45. What makes them gruesome is that all of them had also lost their heads.
Yeah, it happened a lot back then. It really did.
And we've had decapitation stories this week. It's a theme. Yeah.
Loves it.
Their heads were buried with them, sometimes on their chest and sometimes between their legs or feet. Researchers aren't sure why most of the skeletons at the Driffield Terrace were decapitated. They date to between the 2nd and 4th centuries AD, when the area was part of the Northern Roman Empire. Because most of the skeletons were particularly tall and showed signs of trauma, they may have been the bones of gladiators. They might also have been military men. A genetic analysis of 7 of the decapitated skeletons found that 6 had hailed from Britain, while 1 may have come from Lebanon or Syria.
Huh.
which I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so we actually had somebody that, when we changed formats, we lost. He jumped ship on us, and we
come back.
We miss you, Yates. We need you, Yates.
Come back.
He doesn't speak ADHD well.
Come back.
Which is part of my problem today. I forgot to take my Stratera. But he knew a gentleman who had a ghost sighting in that area of England or Britain or whatever you want to call it, where he had passed by a wall and there was somebody sitting on top of the wall.
Yeah.
And was dressed in Roman gear. Dude didn't have a clue. And so when he had told Yates what he had seen, Yates, being a brilliant person, knew exactly what it was. And in that area, there had been, as far as, Romans when they had occupied that area. So that's in that's been way back.
Way back.
But it can still be found on the YouTubes as far as I know.
I found some really old videos on YouTube last night, and I'm disturbed.
Back when YouTube used to be fun?
Like, yeah, in the early days of YouTube, and I'm like, because it was Wild West back then. Yeah. So everybody's posting anything and everything, and everything and the kitchen sink.
Yeah. And
but then some people are uploading these weird, creepy videos, and I'm like,
yeah, those were the cool ones.
Oh. I like these, but I'm disturbed.
Yeah, and it's like that was before the world went just totally batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Evidence of war. About 10,000 years ago, something horrible happened in what is now Kenya. 27 people, men, women, and children, died of trauma. Their bones discovered in 2012 in the sediments of Lake Turkana show the marks of blunt weapons like clubs and sharp projectiles like arrows. Archaeologists think that the size of the group indicates ancient warfare rather than a violent domestic dispute. Well, 27 people? How big of a family did they have? It says one woman was found with both knees broken, hands extended in front of her, so that's very well could have been that her wrists may have been bound.
Yeah.
And seriously, the pictures here on the website, very much worth going and looking at. They're pretty interesting.
Dang.
Pit of Death. Those were always fun.
That's a spiky pit, right?
It says a property development project in France uncovered something truly shocking in 2012. A pit 6.5 feet, which is 2 meters deep, and 5 feet, 1.5 meters in diameter, filled to the brim with bones. Even more sickening, the bones consisted of severed arms and fingers, as well as the skeletons of infants, children, and adults.
Oh my
Researchers
God.
found at least 7 upper arms, including one from a young teenager. On top of the amputated limbs, 7 bodies had been tossed into the pit, including that of a middle-aged man who'd had an arm chopped off and suffered a blow to the head. These bones dated back about 5,000 plus years.
Oh my
The
God.
bodies and body parts most likely were casualties of war, and some may also have been executed in a sort of brutal Neolithic justice. People didn't think about killing, people back then. They just,
Damn.
It's like, you pissed me off, I break your head, literally.
Yeah.
This one was particularly... I like this one because I like medical mystery type things. Toothy tumor. Says when Spanish archaeologists unearthed a 1,600-year-old skeleton of a Roman woman, they were surprised at what they found in her pelvis. Peeking out from between her hips was a calcified ball of bone containing 4 malformed teeth. This creepy discovery was an ovarian teratoma, a kind of tumor that arises from germ cells, and that's like pre-fetus type cells, not like disease cells. And it says here that they are the precursors of human egg cells, so they can form body parts like teeth and bones. The most common teratomas are benign, as was the one of the Roman woman's pelvis. Complications from the tumor could have eventually killed the woman, archaeologists said, but she may have never known that the toothy thing was inside of her abdomen.
Yeah. Holy fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm disturbed.
Oh, there's some really interesting things that can happen to a human body. Really. It can be much worse than that. We could go into where the people that like would chew on their hair and stuff like that developed hair balls. For real.
I wonder if you tried to emulate the same motions of a cat trying to hoik up a hairball, if you could hoik it up.
No, it usually gets into the intestines and it literally does form these little balls. I'll find some of those things and totally gross you out one time.
Please don't.
All right,
I beg of you.
Polish vampire.
Well, yes, that's to traumatize the child even more.
Yes, that's why I'm here.
Let's traumatize the young son.
Polish vampire burials. The real story behind Eastern European vampires is quite possibly creepier than the fictionalized tales of Dracula. Between the 1600s and 1700s in Poland, some people were buried with sickles over their necks or rocks wedged under their chins.
Wow.
These precautions were taken to prevent the dead from rising again as vampires who, locals believed, would return to suck the blood of families and friends. In 2014, researchers found that the vampire burials at Drosko Cemetery in Poland were the bodies of locals who had not died of trauma. They were likely the victims of a cholera epidemic. Now, wouldn't that be a bitch to die of some random disease and everybody's going, vampire?
Yeah.
And then so they do these horrible things to the corpse.
And their spirits love watching them be like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all?
Except for Napoleon, he probably deserved what happened to him.
Oh, no, yeah. Yeah. They just did that for shits and giggles.
Absolutely. Wouldn't you have?
Oh, hell
really?
Yeah.
All right. Remnants of a witch hunt. Sometimes an archaeology discovery doesn't need to involve bones to be disturbing. A 15th century church in Aberdeen, Scotland contains an artifact such as this. The chapel contained a stone pillar set with an iron ring which may have been used to restrain accused witches in 1597. Aberdeen hosted a series of witch trials that year that was known as the Great Witch Hunt. Around 400 people were tried, approximately 200 executed in an 8-month period. The deaths were grisly. One of the famous cases, Jane Wishart, was convicted along with her son, Thomas Lyas. Both were strangled and then burned. We actually, we did a couple of really intensive videos about the different witch hunts and witch trials and stuff like that. So you just have to go through the archives and look at those.
No.
All right.
That's fucked up.
And Civil War massacre. Now, when we hear that, we forget that almost every other nation has had some form of civil war.
Yeah.
It says an attempt to expand the library at Durham University in northeast England turned into a discovery of the 17th century's pain and suffering. Archaeologists excavating in advance of construction discovered 2 mass graves containing 1,700 skeletons, dating back to the mid-1600s. The skeletons were probably the remains of Scottish prisoners of war taken captive during the Third English Civil War, a battle between parliamentarians led by Oliver Cromwell and royalists loyal to King Charles II. 1,700 in one mass grave.
Damn, that's...
The skeletons belonged to men between the ages of 13 and 25, suggesting that they were military men. They showed few signs of trauma and probably died of disease while imprisoned, only to be thrown into the anonymous mass graves. And a senior lecturer at Durham University, Pam Graves, appropriate name, stated, These are ordinary soldiers from the Scots army, probably raised from the lowlands of Scotland, some Highlanders, and up into the northeast of Scotland, whose names we don't have. We know the names of contemporary officers, but so rarely do we ever know the names of ordinary soldiers, end quote. And that's something to really ponder, because you've got the random people that are used as pawns in rich people's wars.
That still goes on.
Of course it does. But anyhow.
And how do they not find that mass grave thing completely disrespectful?
The thing is, why do humans keep doing this stuff? And you would think after a certain point they would learn, but no.
Because it's a pissing show.
Well, to a degree. I like this one. Mummified lung. Whole body mummies are a little creepy, but when you open a sarcophagus and find nothing but a skeleton and a single leathery lung, well, you've just crossed into some pretty spooky territory. Archaeologists experienced just that when they opened a stone sarcophagus in the Basilica de Saint Denis, I'm going to ruin that, in Paris in 1959. Oldest kid will come and backhand me on that. The remains belong to a queen that I'm not even going to try to attempt, who lived between about AD 515 and 580. For a long time, it was a total mystery why this body had decomposed while her lung became mummified. In April of 2016, researchers reported at a conference in Germany that they had figured it out, that the lung showed chemical traces of plant compounds as well as high levels of copper. It's likely that after the woman's death, embalming fluid made of plants and spices was injected down her throat and landed in her lung. The queen was interred wearing a copper alloy belt. Copper has antimicrobial properties, so the combination of embalming herbs and metal likely preserved the single organ.
Damn.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I like odd things, so. Then you have the shackled skeletons. And it says their necks flecked and jaws gaping. Go and look at these pictures on this website. Dozens of skeletons peer up from an ancient mass grave near Athens. Their blank expressions are what makes this discovery disturbing. It's that many of the skeletons still wear shackles. The skeletons, there are 80 in the mass grave, 36 of which have iron shackles around their wrists, belong to prisoners who died between around 650 BC and 625 BC, archaeologists say. Historical records tell of an ancient coup in 1632 BC that could explain the bodies. The Olympic champion Cylon attempted to take over Athens and failed. The bodies could be those of his executed followers. Yeah, that's what happens if the coup is not successful. Everybody gets killed on that.
Shit.
Strange romance. True love was forever for these people, for the Lady of Brefilic. That's what I'm calling it, and I'm sticking to it. There's more people in France. It says the widow died in 1656 and was interred with a rather alarming trinket, the heart of her husband.
Oh.
And so her husband, who was a knight, died in 1649 and was sometimes done at that time. His heart was removed, embalmed, and put into a lead urn. And there was a radiologist at the University Hospital of Toulouse in France who stated that it was common during that time to be buried with the heart of a husband or wife, and that it was a very romantic aspect to the burials. See, the people was goth. They just didn't call themselves that. It says that magnetic resonance imaging and computed tomography, CT scans, were used to, as far as 4 other tests, to find out about the hearts from these graves of the elites. And the organs were so well preserved that researchers could still see a buildup of plaque on many of the arteries.
Wow.
How cool is that?
That is pretty fucking wicked, dude.
Then we have...
Better than the shit that we got now.
Well, yeah. A tragic sacrifice. Mountaineers climbing near Argentina in 1985 stumbled across a dark memento of the past. Nestled in a stone structure was the huddled mummy of a 7-year-old who died about 500 years ago. Oh. The little boy was the victim of child sacrifice.
Oh.
The ritual that I'm not even going to try to pronounce that was practiced by the Incan people. As in the movie The Hunger Games, children were called as tribute from rural regions to the city, where they would live for about a year before they were drugged and wheeled into their tomb to die of exposure. Many of the mummies sport skull fractures, so there is debate over how they were killed. They may have been knocked out in order to decrease their suffering. Okay, how about don't kill them? That will decrease their suffering.
Yeah.
What was
the point of that?
Every culture, almost every culture, has gone through periods of time where they have had child sacrifice. It's demonic and cruel. I mean, it's like this. If you don't want kids, take precautions so that you don't have kids.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple on that. Anyhow, I'll not get on that tangent. Collective punishment. You work for years supporting the first female emperor to China and smothering her rise to power. You break your own arm instead of fighting against her for an rebel army. And then you help her mollify civil disorder. She tries to, And then your little brother goes rogue and gets you all executed. That sounds like somebody that we know. And that's the sad story of a couple of these brothers. And so archaeologists had discovered one of the brothers' 1,300-year-old tomb, and there was the tale written on the epitaph that explained what had happened. And so, as collective punishment, the entire family was killed, because that's how it wasn't just the one. No, they killed out the whole damn bunch. And then it says that they were carelessly buried.
That's fucking vile.
That's humanity. And for our last one today, bones in a tree. I think this one's cool too. It says a season 6 episode of the crime show Bones, I've never watched it, involves the case of a skeleton discovered with a dogwood tree growing through it. Something similar really happened in Ireland, and though the tree was a beech. In 2015, a 215-year-old tree blew over in a winter storm in some part of Ireland. Entangled, I'm not even trying those things today. Entangled in the roots was a mass of bones. They turned out to belong to a boy who died between the year 1030 and 1200. Okay, making the discovery all the more creepy, the boy's ribs and hands showed knife marks, suggesting that his death was violent.
Oh my God.
And it was one of the things...
is fucking vile.
Well, humans. But in the movie, The Wicker Man, the original one, not the one with Nicolas Cage, because I refuse.
Not the bees! Not the bees!
That was one of the interesting things. The people on the island, when someone died, they would place a seed in their hands. And so on some of them, the tree had grown, and of course burst through the grave and stuff like. I think that's a cool tradition.
I think that's really fucking cool. I want that done to me.
So,
When you die, I'm going to plant you with an apple seed.
Okay. That sounds good. Mulberry. Do a mulberry.
Blackberry.
Okay. That's a vine.
That's
not. Anyhow, if you've had experiences with paranormal, supernatural encounters with UFOs, aliens, cryptids, if you've got experience with weird archaeological digs and findings, if you've got local, regional, family myths or legends, send us an email, cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com. Mm-hmm. And the email address is also there in the description box, so you don't have to worry if you can't remember it.
Yeah. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, comment, and most of all, subscribe and click that little notification button for daily notifications of our daily uploads. I didn't screw it up this time. Hell yeah.
Oh, thank you all for sharing a cup of coffee with us and having some interesting archaeological discussions. I know that you're loved and appreciated.
I should have been an archaeologist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a cool thing to do. There's not
It's too late for me.
There's not a lot of money in it, though. Not in some of our areas. You usually end up having to teach to support yourself.
Shit.
It'd be all right. And we'll see you on the next cup. Bye.
Bye. I could bury you with a cherry seed.
Okay.
Cherry tree seed.
It'll work.